Okay guys, welcome back. So let's have a look at number 15. So it tells us that we need to simplify fully this expression here. Now if you look carefully, I'm just going to zoom in here. We have a negative power. Now before you look at anything else, when you have a negative power, what it means in terms of powers is that you do not put negative signs. You want a negative power literally means take the reciprocal, so flip it upside down. So all of this becomes y to the power 8 over 256 x to the power 20, and then you put, instead of negative, it just becomes a positive power of 1 over 4, and then you just apply the power rules. So what we do here, so here we're going to apply the power of a quarter to every single term. So we're going to have y to the power 8 times a quarter, so you just times it on. If you got a power, you just times the powers. We've got 256 that also has a power of a quarter now, and we're also going to have x to the power 20, which is times by a quarter. And then all you want to do is firstly put all of this in the calculator. So 8 times a quarter, well, that should give us 2, y to the power 2. 256 to the power quarter, that gives us exactly 4. That's basically the fourth root of 256. And for the x term, 20 times a quarter is 5. Okay, and that's your answer. That's your simplified fully answer. Now, B. Express these two fractions as a single fraction in simplest form. Tip. So, don't know if we've seen this before, but if you have a fraction underneath like this, which looks like this, and it's a squared function, it could be something known as difference of two squares, dots. And when you do that, this is a double bracket problem. So let's have a look at it. So for the first one, if you've got 9x squared minus 25, what you want to do is whip out two brackets, a bit like this. And then realize that in order to solve this, we need to square root both terms. So the square root of 9x squared is 3x. Put down both. Put a plus minus. And then the square root of 25 is 5. So you should get the same expression twice. 1 plus, 1 minus. And then we copy the second fraction. Now, another tip here. See if you can simplify this, if you can factorize. You'll notice that from 6x plus 10, they both go into the 2 times table. So let's whip out 2. So we should have 2 times, and inside the bracket, if you factorize 2, you're left with 3x plus 5. Okay, now looking at this carefully, the only way to make this a single fraction is if we have the same common denominator. So the bottom half must be the same. And looking at both equations, this side has an extra 3x minus 5, and this one doesn't. Secondly, this one also doesn't have a 2. So the way it works, you need to times up and down by what's missing. So I'm going to change the color pen here. And I'm just going to go in and multiply this. On the left side, we need to stick in a 2. So timesing up and down by 2, this becomes a 2, and you can put a 2 there. Here on the right side, timesing up and down by 3x minus 5, all of this becomes 3x minus 5 up and 3x minus 5 down. And now we just combine the fraction. So we can combine the top half. So it'll just essentially be 2 minus 3x minus 5. And doing it carefully, so I'm going to work separately. 2 minus 3x minus 5. If you open a bracket, and this is the part you got to be careful, you got a negative sign, so you have to flip the signs inside. So it's going to become 2 minus 3x plus 5, and 2 plus 5 is 7, so 7 minus 3x. That means the final answer is going to be 7 minus 3x over everything you see, which is 2 times 3x plus 5 and 3x minus 5. Okay, so this was quite a big question, wasn't it? I hope this is the final step. I mean, looking at it once more, seems you just have to try and notice that you have difference of two squares dots. But anyways, let's move forward now. Okay, 16. So a frustum is made by removing a small cone from a large cone. Okay, so they literally took off the tip. However, they are mathematically similar. So all that means is that they're proportionally different. Okay, they have the same shape but just different in proportion. Now it tells us that the large cone has a base radius of r and a height of h. So let's go ahead and imagine this for a second, yeah? The volume of the frustum over the volume of the large cone represented by 90 and 125 parts. So if we consider that the volume frustum itself is 98 parts and the whole cone is 125, this means that the leftover bit, and let me just change the color, the small cone bit, guys, must be just a little 27 parts. Okay, it makes sense because 27 plus 98 will give us 125 parts. Okay, so that tells us that the volume of the small cone or the volume of the large cone has a relationship of 27 out of the 125 parts. Cool. Now, what does this tell us? Well, when you work with mathematically similar things, this tells us that the volume, that the scale factor in general are all related. So I pretty much like jot this down. When you work at lengths, you have let's say that the ratio between the small cone and large cone is represented by k. This means that the areas between them is k squared, and the volume between them is k cubed. And by the way, the k's here are all the same. The only difference are the powers. So look at this number again. We're looking at the relationship between the volume between the small and large cone, which is this. So technically 27 over 125 equals to k squared, k cubed I mean. That means if you want to find the lengths, and by the way we want the lengths because height is the length, we can say that to find k, we can just literally cube root this, and that will give us about 3/5. So we can say now that the relation between the small cone to the large cone has a height of 3 to 5 parts. So what I'm saying here, if this had a height of 3 parts, that means the full length has a height of 5 parts. Okay. Now, if you look at the variable, we called it h here. So let me just give this 98. This means if the whole thing is h, this means the height of this part is 3/5 of h. Makes sense? So this is 3/5 of h, meaning the thrust in the remainder bit is 2/5 of h. And yeah, guys, that's literally it. I mean, I think we solved it. And then you get 2/5 of h. Yeah. So this one is a bit, I can't explain. I actually recorded this video at least 7 times, you know, just to literally explain the best way I can. So if you guys enjoyed my explanation, please give me a like or any suggestions or feedback. And otherwise, yeah, literally memorize these group of formulas, because this is actually going to help you a lot, especially this whole scale factor concept. Anyway, guys, let's move on to 17. So the diagram shows a parallelogram ABCD. Okay. Now it tells us that when you go from A to B, so this direction here, you travel 2 across the x-axis and 7 up the y-axis. So remember, this is x and this is y. Where if you go from A all the way to C, so you can literally just imagine it like this, you're going to travel a direction of 10 across and 11 up. Okay, easy. So point B has coordinates 5, 8. So let's put that here for a second. So this is 5, 8. Work out the coordinates of C. Well, let's just look at it again, yeah? So let's look at A to B. If it's 5 to 8 and you're traveling from A to B, so if you went backwards, you would have gone back 2 spaces and back 7 spaces. So back 2 spaces from the x-axis would be 3, and back 7 spaces from A to B, 1. Now if you're going from A to C, you're going to travel 10 across the x, so 3 plus 10 is 13, and 11 from y, so 1 plus 11 is 12. And that's it, 13, 12. So the point E has coordinates 63, 2, 1, 1. Okay, so point E so far, guys, is not on this diagram, yeah? Now, use a vector method to prove that the line ABE is a straight line. So, in other words, it's telling us that if we extend this line AB all the way to some future point, I don't know, E here, yeah, which was what? 63, 2, 1, 1. Let's write that down. 2, 1, 1. We need to show that we can make a straight line. Now guys, the only way to find a straight line is to basically show that these two lines have the same direction. Does that make sense? A straight line means you move in the same direction. So in general, the only way to prove that this is actually a straight line is that the length, for example, from A to B must be proportional to the length from A to E. That is, for every 2 steps you go across X and 7 steps up, it must be the same from A to E. 2 steps across, 7 up, as many times it takes till you get here. So so to write down formally, you could say, all right, we must show that A to E must be proportional to A to B. So that is, to work out A to E is basically going from this to that. And you can just work out the difference between the coordinates. So we can travel at least the x coordinate. You can do 63 take away 3. That gives us a vector of 60 on the x. For the y, just subtract the y coordinate. So 211 take away 1 is 210. Okay. We want to show that this is directly proportional to 2 across and 7 across. 7 up. And well, to make your life easy, let's have a look. You can see that if you just divide these two, 7 over 2, this is at 3.5 times your y-axis compared to x. Whereas 210 divided by 60 is also, well, 3.5. And that's it. This is clear.